Many thanks again for rejoining us on Nigeria Decides live studio of independent television. Lovely, lovely Tuesday morning, 4 days to the 2023 general election. We're joined now by our first guest on the show. Others are on their way. They will be taking their turns on the program this lovely Tuesday morning. Peter Igbenedion is a member of the professionals for Atiku campaign organization. Peter Igbenedion, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, this election has been described with qualified with several adjectives. It's a watershed, it's a defining moment, it's one elections Nigerians want to use as an opportunity to right the wrongs of the past. Can you take it off from there?
It's actually a defining moment for the country because as of today, Nigeria is almost going into extinction. And for us in the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, our principal, our presidential candidate is Excellency Alhaji Abubakar Atiku has unveiled his covenant, a covenant he called My Covenant with Nigerians, and it's anchored on 5 developmental pillars, which are unity, security, economic prosperity, education, and restructuring. And for us as a party, I think it's a clarion call for us to rescue Nigeria, put Nigeria back on the path of recovery. And with that, we see it as an opportunity to avail Nigeria that quest to take back our country from the abyss in which the ruling party has put it into. And I also want to let you know that our principal, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, having been a seasoned businessman in his private businesses and also an astute administrator, he was a former vice president, and his antecedents are all glaring for us to see. And we are going to look at the economy. Presently, Nigeria's economy, GDP, is at about $430 billion US. And he has promised, and that's a covenant, that's a mandate, that is going to reinflate the economy, that by 2030, Nigeria's GDP should be about 900 billion. And we have set up machineries in motion. And if you remember, immediately was announced as the PDP presidential candidate. He went into action. He took actionable steps, and he was the first to even announce his vice presidential candidate, the person of His Excellency Dr. Ato Ifeanyi Okowa, the governor of Delta State. And with that, you understand that this is a man that is focused. This is a man that is composed. He has his eyes on the ball. And rescuing Nigeria is a task.
Okay. Let's quickly engage you on some of the key things that you have raised. Fundamental of which is the fact that the PDP had the opportunity to be at the helm of affairs of this country for about 16 years. And the feeling is that if those 16 years were adequately utilized in putting Nigeria in the world map, today probably won't be where we are today. It's very easy for people to make reference to those years, compare them to today, all right? But we're looking at those years as a foundational year or a foundational period for Nigeria's democracy. Is there any way we can extricate the PDP or party from where Nigeria is as a country and where we are as a people?
Of course, of course. The PDP, during its administrative years in governing Nigeria, actually made Nigeria one of the best performing economy in Africa. And during the PDP years, you will agree with me that Nigeria's presence in international seen was much more credible in terms of diplomacy and how issues were being handled. Permit me to quickly let you know that it was the PDP that did set up these anti-corruption agencies, the ICPC, EFCC, and other agencies that were geared towards accountability, probity in the Nigerian public service. And we have never had it so bad since the PDP were ousted from power. You see, propagandas were used, PRO stunts were used to take out the PDP. But today you understand that pre-2015 was the best years that Nigerians ever experienced. And if you compare what we're experiencing now, you would know it's a suicidal way of existence that Nigerians are coping with. That is why we want to say we need to come back and take out these wrongs that the APC government has brought in.
Peter, without discussing along party lines,
yes.
Let's look at the electorate. What do you see them doing differently in this election as compared to the previous?
For the electorate, I want to say Nigerians are wiser now. And I really want to appreciate them for taking it upon themselves that they must take back this country. And you could see that in the voter registration exercises. Everybody wanted to have the PVC. Everybody wanted to have a stake. And that is what we have been preaching in our party, that everybody must participate in the political process. And that is the beauty of democracy. We have more political parties and we have more actors. And it's going to be an election that will actually unveil the potentials of the Nigerian electorate.
Recently, reports have been seen, and it was noticed that even though the presidential candidate of your party, Atiku Abubakar, was up for the policy of the, the Naira swap, was up for it and welcomed the development. But just recently, we saw reports where he said he's going to hurt Nigerians, that is hurting Nigerians. Why the change? Don't you think that could make him not to be seen as one whose word is his bond?
You see, we cannot take out the fact that Nigerians are actually suffering due to the, how do I call it? Do I say policy somersault, where there's inconsistency in the CBN monetary policy and the way it is being managed. Yes, it was a well thought out policy by the CBN ab initio, and we had a time, and there was a timeline since October that this is what should be done in terms of take out your old 1,500 naira, 200 naira notes and go and deposit your banks for exchange for the new naira notes. But I think the CBN has been overwhelmed by the naira demands, and many theories have come up that this is some of the reasons that they want to curb hoarding of the naira because of the elections to buy votes and all that. But I can tell you confidently that our presidential candidate's remarks are well in order. The sufferings of the masses are well noted.
Okay, it looks like your principal has a disposition of vacillating. I recall when a young Christian lady was attacked in Sokoto State, he had come out to criticize that action over allegation of making a blasphemous statement, and then he expressed himself using Twitter to condemn the action. But before you know it, that statement was taken down, was taken out of Twitter. And up to today, no satisfactory explanation has been given. The Naira swap policy by the CBN received a lot of applause from somebody of his status, commending it. But today, as we speak, like my colleague asked just now, is now, against the policy. Initially, he was for the policy. That kind of person, can that kind of person be trusted with his words? I mean, I'll just give you 2 instances because it's about trust.
You see, I would like to go back to the Naira swap. I think his words were actually taken out of context.
So he has never supported it.
That is not what I said. He said, you know, we all applauded, majority of Nigerians applauded that Naira swap. But what we are not too comfortable with is when is the implementation. The implementation. We don't have enough new Naira notes to go around, and Nigerians are angry. And when Nigerians are angry, you don't need to let them know that you don't feel their pains and their sufferings. And with particular reference to the young lady that was brutally killed, God bless her soul. My principal actually tweeted about it. But you know, Nigeria is a very, very sensitive country where religion is being taken as something that can generate so much of crisis. I mean, that was well managed, and we have since let that be. It's not, you know, because religion and ethnicity, these are moribund, how do I put it? Ideologies that tend to divide the nation. Okay. So one has to be careful what you say.
Okay. Now let's quickly look at the economy itself. It's on record that your principal, apart from being the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has really not held an elective position where he is in the saddle. He had the opportunity of winning a governorship election, but he never became a governor. So he has never really had that, you know, experience to be in charge of leadership, make decisions, make policies to drive whatever agenda that the party has. As a vice presidential candidate, he was under President Olusegun Obasanjo, and at some point, some said he became very rebellious, trying to oust his master, and that brought a lot of crises that led to him eventually leaving the party. So, what are we banking on him to be able to drive this country? 5 pillars or 8 pillars that you have identified. There is no clear-cut definition how these pillars will be implemented. We don't have the numbers, we don't have the statistics, we don't have the information. They are just words on paper.
My Deacon, I wish you would have a copy of that, my covenant with Nigerians, and so that you read through and actually understand the figures and the facts and details that you are requesting. Well, you did accuse. No,
I didn't. I'm not the one who accused. Is there in the public
No,
space?
you said he never had any administrative experience, even while as a vice president. But I can tell you that as a vice president, it was actually the arrowhead of the developmental agenda which brought about NEEDS, the Nigerian Economic Empowerment Development Strategy, which is NEEDS, which actually encompasses economic policies that tend to drive the nation's trajectory towards prosperity. And that agenda was also replicated at the state level, which is SEED, State Economic Empowerment Development Strategy, and also in the local government. You see, when you talk about the ICPC, EFCC, and other achievements of the PDP years, while Obasanjo was at the saddle as the president, the vice president, then His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, was a key figure in that administration's achievements that actually threw up the PDP onto that path that which we have held on to since then. I remember about, I think, more than about 8 years ago when Alhaji Atiku Abubakar came to Benin during the administration of His Excellency, former Governor Chief Lucky Sakari Benedion, where it was during the launch, I think the commissioning of the Nigeria Stock Exchange office in Benin. That moment I was there. I was there with my former boss, Peter Obaseki, Mr. Peter Obaseki, Executive Director, First City Monument Bank Limited then. And I was in that event. And when he spoke as a leader. And I want to re-emphasize what he talked about. He talked about the unity and the unity of Nigeria. And he said it must not be sacrificed at the altar of ethnicity or religion. And he actually gave kudos to his boss for being able to hold Nigeria together. And when he spoke, you understand that this is a leader.
But there are those who feel differently about this. If he truly believes in the unity and the unification of Nigeria, as it were, then he should have respected the North-South dichotomy in the emergence of the presidential candidate, particularly a convention, an understanding that existed in the PDP amongst the political parties, generally speaking, that power should move from the north to the south and south to the north. He has breached or shunted, as they say in engineering, that seeming understanding or convention that is existing. How do you talk about unity, talk about bridging the gap, when you have become the beneficiary of a skewed process that has not allowed that power rotation from the north to the south? How do you make yourself an apostle of rescue, unity, unification when this is the case?
You see, come February 25th, 2023, we're going to elect a Nigerian president. We're not going to elect a northern president or a southern president. And you allege that he breached an agreement. An agreement, was it a written agreement? Not only that, I can confidently tell you that those postulations, political postulations, were actually propounded by those who felt that their selfish interests should be above national interest. And if we have to look at it, this is the present administration is never a PDP administration. This is an APC administration. And if you want to check the number of years since our democratic experience, since 1999, you would understand that the South, Obasanjo had 8 years. Dr. Jonathan Goodluck had 6 years. That is 14. Alhaji Umaru Yar'Adua, of blessed memories, God bless his soul, had 2 years. That's from the north. Then Buhari, Major General Buhari retired. He's having 8 years. 8 plus 2 is 10 years. South 14, North 10. But we're not supposed to be discussing this because these are the issues that tend to divide us more. Divide us more.
Okay, Peter, we've had this, we've been on this road, and still in the tempo of what you just said concerning the North and the South in terms of the presidential powers, being rotated between the two parts of the country. Now, don't you think we just had the president, we have the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the outgoing president, President Muhammadu Buhari, as from the Hausa Fulani ethnic group. And then what is the possibility that Nigerians or the electorate, because you are not the one that's going to decide that, it's the electorate that will decide that. Why aren't you pained, or aren't you feeling that the electorate could, make a decision that could change the ethnic group, of that who is going to lead the country? Don't you think does that not disturb your principle? Does it not disturb your party? Does it not also disturb you?
When you look at it, when you begin to see the national interest above primordial interest, I think what is much more important now is how to rescue Nigeria and put Nigeria back on the track. This ethnic profiling, stereotyping, it's something that shouldn't come up. You see, power is not just given. Nigerians do contest on the platform of political parties for them to, get into office and do the needful for the citizenry. And I must tell you that the Constitution does not forbid any Nigerian from contesting.
Okay, but can you undermine the activities of Nyesom Wike, the governor of Rivers
I will not
State?
see.
Can you undermine the activities? Isn't that also a setback to the winning factor of your principal party?
No. You see, the PDP remains strong and united. We have since moved beyond the stage. We are looking at the election. We are looking at the, we are fixated on the target, on the ball. The ball is to rescue Nigeria. We have moved beyond intra-party issues. Reconciliations are taking place, here and there. So we don't want to discuss personalities here.
Are you sure of getting numbers from Rivers State, for instance, that has about 3.5 million votes?
We've campaigned throughout the nooks and crannies of this country, and we are quite sure that we have done what is expected of us as a party. We have spoken to the electorates. We have showed them our mandates. From the word go, we've been ready. And in Rivers State, the figures will count.
Okay. Let's just look at the one major problem that has blighted this nation has been the issue of corruption. Right from the time the new democratic process birthed in Nigeria up until now, corruption has been a major challenge. You credited the emergence of EFCC, ICPC as instruments that were created under the PDP to fight corruption and make Nigeria free of corruption. But over the years, we have seen that corruption has continued to be a major problem. Your principal has been alleged to be neck deep in this. If you use, for example, the recent statement credited to one of his former special advisor or media aide, where they talked about the special vehicle stuff, which gives them opportunity to do certain things that cannot be traced and all of that. And you could hear from the voice notes that was posted on social media how he was surprised that the young man didn't have knowledge about what the special vehicle instrument was and all of that. For somebody who already has question marks about his disposition towards corruption, is that a major challenge for him in terms of influencing Nigeria's disposition, the electorate's disposition towards him in this election?
Well, when you talk about that allegation has been being cascaded through the social media and all whatnot, that young man should understand that there are appropriate processes. When you allege, you will need to go and file in those processes at the anti-corruption agency's office. And I don't think he has done that. If he has done that, and I'm also aware that no court of competent jurisdiction has convicted my principal. So I want to see all these within the realms of speculations and all that. And I don't want to delve into issues that are unfounded as far as I'm concerned.
We have the major challenge of diversifying the economy, strengthening the structures of governance, ensuring that all of these things are functioning optimally. People have talked about the need to privatize. And it's on record that your principal, as head of the economic team, was very, very instrumental to the privatization that we saw in this country. And some of those privatized assets, either they are not in existence or they are worse off than they were. A good example of them is NEPA, as it were. We know what the state of power is in the country today. Another good example, we can talk about MTEL or NITEL, as it were. We know the state of that today. So I'd like to get your take on these two key issues as it relates to strengthening the economy, which in a sense can be explained to mean rescuing the economy, which is your slogan.
You see, the PDP has since left power in 2015. And up to now, if those privatization processes have not actually achieved their desired goals, it's only proper that we look into the issues that they allow them to work. And we have had a government in place. And we have had other agencies who are responsible for ensuring, monitoring that these things do get to function. But unfortunately, they have not been functioning. And that goes to also tell you that there's a huge deficit in how we manage our sectors up to now. And that is why, for us as a party, we have looked at it. And when you talk about diversification, yes, diversification has always been ensuring that the oil sector, which account for about 80% of our, transactions with the outside world, we want to ensure that the other rich sectors of the economy, like manufacturing, agriculture, are given the desired attention so that the economy can kickstart. And if you also look at power and the energy crisis that we're having, it's not really helping issues. Okay. And our principal has promised that he will also look into that. He will also ensure that there are involvements of private sector funding and implementation.
So he was part of the government that spent $16 billion in the power sector in the days of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. As a matter of fact, he was the vice president and the head of the economic team, as it were, then. So what do you say about that?
Let me quickly recall what you said earlier, that my principal had no administrative experience as a vice president.
Yes.
But when it comes to 16 billion, you were quick to attribute it to,
to
him being part of it.
Yes, because it's part of the experience I was talking about. If he had experience, probably would have seen the result from the $16 billion. We didn't see any result from the $16 billion.
You see, don't also forget that the Nigerian civil service, it does not exist in isolation. Individuals can make and implement policies, but it's for the civil service to carry it through. And there are agencies, ministries that are responsible for this. What you can only do is to ensure that these things work. Okay. But when you have saboteurs in the economy, when you have people who are neck deep, that Nigerians must not work. Those are the issues that we are fighting. Those are the issues that we want to ensure that we eradicate and at best mitigate.
Okay, let's look at what is paramount before your party and before your presidential candidate in terms of manifestos or programs, and what is the blueprint of carrying that out?
Like I did say earlier, we have 5 developmental pillars, which is unity, security, economic prosperity, education, and structuring. You see, having to make this country work, there has to be a blueprint. You must go back to the basics. You must renegotiate our corporate existence. And it has to be through constitutional means to foster unity and stability in the economy. We must ensure that there is absolute independence of the judiciary, that fundamental human rights must be respected and all that. And for security, in the last 1 year, we have been able, the present administration has spent close to more than $1 billion to boost the morale of our military. I think what we should do, what we are looking at, is a reorientation of the military and make them focus more on their callings, which is the defend the territorial integrity of our country. And we want to ensure that the right people are placed at the right positions, not just using nepotism like we have experienced thus far, which has caused huge disaffection among the Nigerians.
Okay. On the final note, before we let you go,
okay.
The election is on Saturday.
Exactly.
This Saturday, 25th of February. INEC has made a statement that on that day, Nigerians will come out and vote. They will not be influenced by monies. Exactly. Give us your final take on the expectations on the elections.
You see, for Nigerians, it's is a divine mandate. We have suffered enough, and I want to appeal to the electorate that they have to be very, very orderly. They have to ensure that they go to their polling centers and cast their vote for their preferred candidates. The election will definitely hold. And if you can see the preparations in town, INEC is ready to deliver a credible and fair elections. And I can only wish Nigerians well.
Okay, thank you very much. Just before we call it a wrap, I did ask Peter Egbenedion the question about $16 billion that was allegedly spent in the power sector. But it's on record, fact check, there was no such thing because the records are not there. It was just, something that was in the public space at the time. People were hoodwinked to believe that $16 billion was actually spent in the power sector. Fact checks across all lines, all structures, there's no evidence that ever took place. So I want to say big thanks to everyone who's made that fact check possible. We'll take a short break. Peter, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You see, Nigeria Decides live studio on independent television, and we'll take a break. We'll be back with you in a moment.